Let's talk about songwriting today. I talk a lot about music production, recording, mixing on this channel, but none of that can happen without a song. If you're a songwriter or an aspiring songwriter and you find the whole process to be mysterious or frustrating, I want to share with you some of my favorite tips that have helped me demystify that process, increase enjoyment when it comes to songwriting, and increase my output as a songwriter. And if you're not a songwriter, stick around. I got something for you as well. I've got 6 tips I want to share with you. Number 6, by the way, changed my songwriting forever, so stick around. The songwriting process can be frustrating. It can feel like a slow, painful, torturous slog just to get through the process for one song. Then you got to do it again for the next one. It can be a pain, but it doesn't have to be. It's possible to get to a point where you can write songs on command. Sometimes it will feel almost effortless. And it's possible to write songs that you're proud of, songs that you're excited to go record, versus songs that you feel like the entire recording process is just slapping lipstick on a pig because this song's just not that great. Before we jump into the first tip, I want you to leave a comment with your answer to this question. Are you a songwriter? Yes or no? And if so, how many songs have you written? If not, do you aspire to be a songwriter? And if not, I still encourage you to learn more about songwriting, to become well-versed, pun, in the art of songwriting. It will make you a better producer. When someone comes to the studio with a song that needs a little bit of work, you will have some insight to speak into that process versus saying, I ain't no songwriter, so let's just press record. Tip number 1, never start from scratch. This is a piece of advice I got, and it had to do with writing copy for business purposes, but it applies really well to songwriting as well. I love a blank sheet of paper. It represents endless possibility, but when it's time to write a song, sometimes staring at that blank sheet of paper can feel like you're just staring into an endless chasm of disappointment. It's difficult to start from scratch completely. What do I mean? Well, to solve this problem, now it can be good to occasionally do this, start completely from scratch. You never know what will happen, but more often than not, it's pretty frustrating and you end up just getting grumpy. So instead, always be collecting ideas and save them in some sort of place. I use an app called Evernote to save a lot of those. You can save them in a pocket notebook. I don't have mine with me. You can save them in Dropbox, whatever makes sense for you. The voice memos app on your phone. Be consistently capturing musical ideas. So if you're out and about and a cool melody pops in your head, record it really quickly. If you've got an idea for a lyric, jot it down and put it someplace where you'll know where to find it later. So when you sit down to write a song, you say, hot dog, I'm writing a song today. Instead of sitting down to a completely blank piece of paper, you sit down to hopefully a bucket of ideas. And so you can go through and quickly listen to some of the audio recordings you've made, read a few of the lyric ideas you came up with, and then it's off to the races. Creating something from nothing is pretty difficult. Creating something from something else, for example, having some raw material like a cool chord progression and a cool lyric idea, now I can take those and run with them. But starting completely from scratch, that's tough. Tip number 2, the song should stand on its own. I alluded to this earlier, but if you're writing kind of mediocre songs and then depending on the music production process to make them great, you're missing out. If the principle that guides everything we do here is get it right at the source, that doesn't just mean get it right at the recording. It also means get it right at the song level. Let's make sure it's a great song before we move into the whole production process. What does that mean? For me, a great song means I can go play a show at Bluebird Cafe, just me and my guitar, and the song holds up. It's a good song with just the most minimal of production ever, which is just a singer and an instrument. If you've got a song that you don't feel like works unless you add a bunch of production tricks on top, that should give you pause. Maybe the song needs some work. Number 3, finish the song before you start recording. Now, this is personal preference, but I don't like the idea of starting the recording and production process without first finishing the song, because everything you do has a little tinge of, I'm not sure if this is right. Because if the song's not finished, then things could change drastically by the end of the recording process because you haven't actually finished the song. Now, occasionally we'll make changes to the song during the production process. That's normal. But I've had sessions before where the singer hasn't finished the lyrics yet. They come into the studio to sing vocals. Now, instead of just focusing on a good vocal performance, they're focused on, is this lyric the best lyric? Should we rewrite that lyric? That completely changes the recording session and can be really annoying. So instead, Give yourself permission to finish the song before you start the recording process. I prefer to write my songs like on a piece of paper, right, away from the computer. If you write your songs inside your recording platform, your DAW, it becomes a little more challenging because maybe you're doing some production as you write. But I encourage you, before you get fully committed to recording that song, make sure the song is finished. Tip number 4, get feedback on your songs. This one hurts. Nobody likes to get feedback because feedback could be one of 3 things. It could be positive, yay. It could be negative, boo, or it could be crickets, and like nobody replies. I've had all of those happen. The second 2 hurt pretty bad. However, feedback is of utmost importance. Why? Because as good as we might think we are at writing the songs and at determining whether or not they're good, it's helpful to have someone else speak into that. For me, I've had seasons where I've written a whole bunch of songs and I thought they were all amazing. Then I included 2 other people in the process to say, hey, give me feedback on these, and they completely slashed most of the songs until I just had a handful left that were good. It hurt real bad, but it ended up being good for me and good for the music. Tip number 5, rewrite. There's a saying around Nashville or just around the world about songwriting that says great songs are not written, they are rewritten. Chances are your first pass at a song, just like the first draft of a novel, isn't going to be the best version. Sometimes it is, and those are good days, but typically some things need work. I've had songs where I just need to make an adjustment to verse 2 or tweak the first line of the chorus or adjust that melody on the bridge. And then I've had other songs where the thing is almost completely torn down and reassembled for the better. So be willing to finish the song and then take a step away and come back and see if there are things that need to be tweaked and rewritten, ideally before the recording process starts. All right, like I mentioned, number 6 changed everything for me. Game changer. Here it is. Write more songs than you need. Early on as a songwriter, I would write songs, and of course, every song I wrote I thought was amazing. And once I wrote it, I'd write a few more, and once I had a batch of songs, guess what I did next? I recorded those suckers. So in like high school, I wrote, I think it was 8 songs. Then I made an 8-song album. And then a couple semesters into college, I'd written 10, 11 songs, so I made a 10 or 11 song album. Then later on, I wrote 4 or 5 songs, made a 4 or 5 song EP. Then later on, I wrote 10 new songs, made a 10-song album. Do you see the problem there? If I sit down and I say it's time for me to record my album, and I've got 10 songs there, guess what? I'm going to have to record all 10. But what if only like 2 of them are really good? What do I do? Well, that's not even a consideration, because if I take 8 songs away, I only have 2 songs. Well, that's not an album, so I have to record all those 8 songs. Imagine an alternative. Imagine the same scenario. You sit down and say, I want to record an album, but instead of having 10 songs in front of you, you've got 50. Now what do? You're obviously not going to make a 50-song album, I hope. You're going to be able to be selective about which songs you choose. You don't have to record all 50. You have the luxury of sitting back, folding your arms, and saying, which of you is good enough for my album? Now, that may seem harsh, but it's not. You wrote all the songs, and now you're choosing the best of them to become the album. This was a complete and utter game changer for me, because instead of only writing 4 songs and then recording them as an EP, I would write many more songs until I had enough to be selective and to choose the best ones for the project. I can't begin to stress how valuable that single mindset shift was for me as a songwriter. Instead of viewing all my songs as precious, amazing little babies, I was able to say, no, you're not good enough. See ya. You're great. Let's go record. It felt like having a superpower after years of, just because I wrote it, it needed to be recorded. Just because you wrote a song does not mean it needs to be recorded. I'm going to say that again. Just because you wrote it doesn't mean you should record it. Write more than you need, and then you have a plethora of choices to choose from. I've got a bonus tip number 7 for you. Let me give you some context. I've been working for the last few months on a songwriting course. Historically, I've taught music production, mixing, mastering, all the things related to that. I've never taught much about songwriting, but I've been a songwriter all this time. So I'm finally creating a course to let you in on my songwriting process, the specific mechanics that I use to help me write consistently great songs and be able to write songs on command. One of the bonus videos I created for that course I'm making available to you for free. So you don't have to join the course. You just get to watch it for free. And you can get it at homestudiocorner.com/50. So why /50? What is that? I gave myself a challenge a few years back to write 50 songs in a given amount of time, with the idea that I'll have 10 good ones at the end. When I actually announced that challenge to my audience, people said, "You're stupid. There's no reason to write that many songs." You may think 50 is a lot of songs. You may think 50 isn't that many. For me, 50 was a lot at the time. I'd only written a handful of songs up to that point. So 50 was a massive number of songs. And people told me, "You're going to write a bunch of crap and it's not going to matter." Turns out, they were both right and wrong, but it was a crazy adventure, and I've documented that journey in a free masterclass that you can have by going to homestudiocorner.com/50. Hope you check it out. As always, thanks for watching. If you want more songwriting from me, here's a playlist I made a few years ago of me just sitting down and writing songs live on a live stream. It's bonkers, really fun. Go check it out.